Welcome to Maker Model College online tutorial. We hope at the end of this lesson, you will have acquired the expected learning outcome. Sit down and listen attentively as we introduce your subject teacher.
Welcome back to another chemistry class. I am Saliu Abdul Wahab, your chemistry teacher. Today we shall be looking at reporting experiment. In our previous classes, we have discussed what chemistry is and what matter is. In that class, we concluded that chemistry is a practical subject. Chemistry is a subject that has to do with a lot of investigation. And during investigation or practicals, observations are made. And the careful method of presenting these results obtained from experimental processes is referred to as reporting experiment. I want you to know that when reporting experiment, you must have to follow a careful method. Your language must be precise, and you must follow a step-by-step procedure in presenting your results. After presenting your results, other scientists around the world will have to take a look at it. And if it doesn't follow the scientific pattern of presenting results, your work is useless. Therefore, we want to look at the method of reporting experiments. Now, in reporting experiments, you have to start with dates. And your date must be carefully written at the top corner of your report sheet. Then after that, you title your experiment. For instance, you want to determine the percentage purity of water. The title of your experiment will be to determine the percentage purity of experiment. However, immediately after the title of your experiment, you must tell us your aim. Your aim is, what are you set to achieve? What do you want to do? What do you want to do? It must be clearly stated, and it must be in a precise and short language. It should not be too many that people will have to stress themselves before understanding what we want to talk about. Then after that, you go straight to your objective. Yes, what you want to achieve at the end of the day. I need to remind you that your aim and objective can be the same. They can be similar, because there is no clear distinction between aim and objective when presenting a practical result or experimental result, except experiments that will have to take months or years and so on. Then immediately after that, you go straight to your apparatus. What apparatus do you need? Apparatus are materials, apart from reagents, that you need to carry out an experiment. Of course, apparatus ranges from burettes, retort stamps, conical flask, round bottom flask, flat bottom flask, Kip's apparatus, etc. There are very many. You can go to your lab and take a look at some of those materials that we have just mentioned. Remember, apparatus are pieces of materials apart from chemicals that are used during practical process. Also remember that apparatus could be glasswares, and they have to be glasswares because some of the chemicals you shall be using can be very reactive. And if you use any other apparatus or any other material apart from glasswares, those reagents or chemicals will react to them. Remember that glasses are very, very poor in reactivity. So glasswares are used as apparatus, most especially in the lab. Then immediately after that, we shall be looking at the reagents. What are reagents? Reagents are chemical materials. Apart from apparatus, reagents are chemical materials that are used when conducting experiments. Of course, your reagents will be Tollens reagents, Fellings reagents, Benedict's reagents, Sudan 3 solution, and many others. All these reagents helps you in achieving your aim. I need to also remind you that reagents are not to be tested in the lab. For instance, we know that an acid tastes sour. You are not expected to taste any chemical in the lab because the effect can be dangerous. Be mindful of that. Thank you. Now, immediately after that, let us look at the method or the procedure which you need to follow in order to accomplish the set task. Now, this procedure must be reported in such a way that it will not be too much, so that people outside where you are studying now can follow that same procedure and achieve the same results that you have achieved. Also, I want you to know that during procedure, during method of this experiment, when you are carrying out this procedure, you must follow it step by step, and at the same time you should be able to present them logically and sequentially, so that at the end of the day, anybody anywhere in any part of this world can follow it and achieve the same result. Then after that, you will have to set up your diagram, how pieces of apparatus are connected, how they are linked together before you achieve your aim. You have to draw your diagram. How setups are made, you need to draw them and label them efficiently. Then after that, you go straight to your observation. During practical report, observations are made. As soon as these observations are made, you must have to report them. And how do we make observations? Using our sense organs. You could make observation from using your sight, just to take a look at it, and then you see gases are evolved. Of course, you may use your ear, sense of hearing, to hear that it produces sound, effervescence. You may also use your hand to feel the back of the glassware. Is the glassware hot or cold? When it is hot, exothermic. When it is cold, endothermic reactions. You need to make observations. Of course, you need to smell. For instance, hydrogen sulfide have the smell of a rotten egg. Ammonia has a choking smell. So you need to be able to perceive and use your sense organ to make all these observations. Then as soon as observations are made, you go straight to inference. You record those observations immediately as they are made. As soon as these observations are recorded, you go straight to make deduction from your observations, which is the inference. You make reasonable deductions from all observations made, and that is known as inference. Then finally, you make conclusion from your inference. The deductions you have made, you make reasonable conclusion from them. That with the limit of experimental errors, the following has been concluded, e.g. water boils at 100 degrees Celsius. Before we conclude that water boils at 100 or pure water boils at 100 degrees Celsius, experiments has been made, results have been obtained, and conclusions have been drawn. Then on this conclusion, we finally say that pure water boils at 100 degrees Celsius. As a way of summary, I want you to know that as scientists, all the time you'll be carrying out experiments. And whenever you carry out experiments, you have to report your experiment. And each time you report your experiment, you must follow all of this method, starting with the dates, the title, the aim, the objective, the apparatus, the reagents, the methods, or the procedure with which you carry out that experiment. You make a level diagram of your setup, then after that, observations. Then the results of your observations are recorded, inferences are made, and conclusion is done. Thank you very much.